Hello, be sure to get through the story to the end and in the comments write your opinion, and subscribe to the channel, put a like. I don't know why I picked that exact moment to come home early. Maybe it was the breeze rolling off the water or the way the sky had started turning amber, soft and slow like it didn't want to let go of the day. I just picked up a few things from the co-op in town. Lena's favorite almond spread, rosemary garlic crackers, and that overpriced chamomile shampoo she always called a guilty pleasure. She used to say it made her feel like she was on vacation, even when all she was doing was brushing her hair in the mirror. I'd never minded buying it. Honestly, I liked how it made her hair smell when she curled up next to me after a shower, her head tucked beneath my chin like she still trusted me with something sacred. The drive through Southport was its usual quiet, tourists thinning out now that the season had ended, a couple locals waving from their porches out of habit, the sea breeze carrying the scent of salt and the faintest tinge of marsh. Everything about the town looked the same low-slung beach houses, the same diner with the flickering "O" in the neon open sign. Familiar, still. Safe, almost. But the second I stepped through our front door, I knew something had shifted. Something I couldn't quite name yet. It wasn't the silence. Our house had been quiet a lot lately. It was the kind of silence that didn't just sit, it hovered. Like it had been waiting for me. The air felt too still. Like the walls had exhaled and were now bracing for something. Bruno, our old retriever, thudded his tail on the wood floor and patted over, giving my leg a lazy nudge. His eyes looked up at me in that loyal, unbothered way dogs have when they don't know anything's wrong, or maybe when they know something is and they just don't know how to say it. "Hey, buddy," I said softly, scratching behind his ear. But there was no Lena voice calling from the other room. No music playing on her Bluetooth speaker. She usually had some mellow playlist going, something with acoustic guitar and breathy vocals. No scent of candles burning low, like she usually did on Fridays when she was easing into the weekend. "Lena," I called out halfway down the hall. No answer. Just the low hum of the fridge and the faint clink of Bruno's tags. I set the grocery bag on the counter, slower than I needed to, half expecting to hear her footsteps overhead, or the bathroom door creak open, or maybe her voice trailing in from the back deck. But the house held its breath. Then I saw it. A napkin from Joe's Diner, folded neatly by the sink. In thick blue marker, the kind she used to doodle little hearts and song lyrics with, it read, "Out with Courtney, smiley face, back by 9. Courtney, the elusive, ever-convenient friend I'd never once laid eyes on. Lena had been using that name more often lately. "Courtney and I are grabbing coffee. Courtney wants me to help her pick out paint. Courtney's having a rough week and needs a girl's night. Always Courtney. Never seen. Never tagged in a post. Never even mentioned until a few months ago when the distance between Lena and me stopped being subtle." I stared at the napkin like it was a trap door that had just opened beneath me. The smiley face at the end was what did it, really. Something about it looked too practiced. Like she was trying to soften the blow before I even realized it was one. I didn't get mad. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even curse. I just stood there, feeling like I'd stumbled into someone else's kitchen. One that looked like mine, smelled like mine, but didn't feel like it belonged to me anymore. The almond spread was still cold from the grocery store. I picked it up, opened the cabinet, and quietly placed it beside the half-used jar from last week. I moved on to the crackers, slid the shampoo into the linen closet like a man going through the motions of a life that hadn't quite caught up with the truth. I walked through the house like I was taking inventory, like maybe I'd find a missing piece that would make all of it make sense again. The throw blanket was folded neatly at the edge of the couch, untouched. A cup sat by the sink, rim stained with a ring of tea hibiscus, probably her favorite. But her phone wasn't on the counter. Her keys weren't in the dish by the door. Her sweater, the oversized gray one she always threw on over tank tops, was gone from the back of the chair. Nothing screamed wrong, but nothing whispered right either. I sat on the edge of the bed for a while, looking at the framed photo on her nightstand. Us on the beach last spring, wind-tangled hair and matching sunburns, her hand in mine like it was second nature. I tried to remember how it felt. Back then, the weight of her head on my shoulder. The way she used to hum when she thought I wasn't listening. That version of us hadn't disappeared all at once. It had faded, one skipped conversation at a time. One fake smile. One unanswered question. Still, I'd convinced myself this was just life. Work stress. Her volunteer shifts at the animal shelter. The inevitable stretch of routine that pulls even the best couples into separate orbits. We hadn't fought recently. Not really. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels a lot like giving up, but neither person wants to say it out loud first. And yet, standing there in our house, our shared space that had once been filled with laughter and plans and lazy mornings, I felt something I hadn't let myself feel in weeks. I felt alone. And not just in the way you do when someone's out running errands or away for the weekend. I mean the kind of alone that seeps into your bones. The kind that makes you realize someone hasn't just stepped out of the room. They've stepped out of the version of your life you thought you were both still living in. I rubbed my hands over my face and leaned back into the pillows, eyes tracing the cracks in the ceiling paint. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just lay there in the stillness. Bruno curled up at my feet and thought, she's gone. And maybe, just maybe, she'd been gone for a while. She left her laptop open. That was the first thing I noticed when I walked past the dining table. Not something she ever did. Lena was particular, always closed it, slid it back into its sleeve, placed it just so under the table lamp like it was a ritual. But today, it sat wide open, screen dimmed but still glowing faintly, like it had something to confess. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at it like it might spring to life and tell me everything I didn't want to know but couldn't stop myself from needing. My hand hovered above the trackpad. I didn't want to be that guy. The one who snoops, the one who breaks trust to prove a point. But the truth was, whatever trust existed had already broken. I just hadn't seen where the cracks were until now. So I tapped the spacebar. It came to life with a soft hum. No password screen. She hadn't logged out. Her inbox was up, Gmail. Tabs open. A shopping cart full of swimsuits, Yelp reviews for some cocktail lounge in Wilmington, and her messages app in the corner. At first, it all looked harmless, mundane. But then I saw the thread pinned at the top. Max. Not Courtney. Not even a woman's name. Just Max. And suddenly my chest tightened the way it does when you miss a step going down the stairs. Your body knows before your brain does that something's off. I clicked the thread open. There they were. Dozens of messages. Weeks worth. Maybe more. The tone was unmistakable. Familiar. Flirtatious. Full of private jokes and half-said things that left too much room for implication. There were emojis. Photos. Plans. He called her Elle. She called him Trouble. And in between all that nonsense, there were references to nights I didn't know about. Drinks I never heard about. Jokes I wasn't part of. And memories. Memories she'd made without me. She told him about a dress she bought. The red one, I realized. The one I found in the back of her closet with the tag still on. She said she wore it, just for him. She sent him a picture, though I didn't open it. I didn't need to. She told him she couldn't stop thinking about the night they met at Blue Hollow. The bar she said she didn't like because the music was too loud. Apparently, the music had been just fine. There were little things that shouldn't have meant much but did. The way she typed, "Miss you already," when they'd just seen each other. The way he asked if I was still in the dark, and she replied with a winking face. The way he sent a heart after she told him she was feeling guilty. And the way she didn't send one back, but didn't ask him to stop either. That silence said enough. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Scream? Smash the laptop? Take photos of everything? Text her right then and there and tell her I knew? Instead, I just sat down, pulled the chair out quietly and sank into it like my bones had given up. I stared at the screen, reading and rereading the same lines over and over until the words didn't sound like language anymore. There was no mention of me beyond logistics. He's working late. He won't notice. I told him I'm with Courtney. I was a calendar conflict, an obstacle to be worked around. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. I stood up too fast, felt the blood drain from my face, and had to grip the back of the chair for a second to steady myself. Bruno patted over, sensing something was off. I gave him a half-hearted pat on the head, then walked to the hall closet and opened the drawer at the bottom. It stuck a little, always did. But inside, right where I left it, was the box. Small, black velvet, tacky, maybe, but it had felt right at the time. Inside was the ring I'd bought 3 months ago. Gold band. Simple. Understated. Lena's style. I'd planned to give it to her on our anniversary. Had this whole plan worked out. Dinner at the little Italian place on Bay Street. The one where we first went after moving here. A walk along the pier. Then, under the lighthouse, just before the tide came in, I'd ask her to marry me. Really marry me this time. Not just in name, but in that way people do when they're all in. When they're still choosing each other, even after things get hard. But now, all I could think about was how that ring didn't belong to her anymore. I held it in my hand. Felt the way the metal still carried some of my body heat. It was beautiful, I guess. Expensive, too. Took me 4 weekends of overtime and a little help from a buddy at the shop who knew a guy. But none of that mattered now. I might as well have been holding a pebble. The ring didn't carry love anymore. It carried weight. Finality. A reminder that I had been preparing to build something with someone who was already building elsewhere. I didn't put it back. I didn't throw it. I didn't toss it out the window like some dramatic scene in a movie. Instead, I slipped it into my coat pocket, walked back into the kitchen, and shut her laptop without another word, without even a sound. It was still early evening. The sky outside had gone from amber to blue-gray. That quiet stretch of time before the streetlights blink on and everything feels a little slower, like the world's holding its breath. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't take anything with me except the keys and the coat. I opened the front door and stepped into the hush. No plan, no destination. Just one thing I needed to do before I could finally let go. And maybe then, just maybe, I'd stop asking myself where it all went wrong. Because now, I finally knew. It had been going wrong quietly, patiently, while I was still busy loving someone who had already left the room. I drove like the road was in charge. No destination, no playlist, no conscious thought steering the wheel, just the quiet hum of the tires and the occasional blink of the turn signal when I let habit take over. The town stretched out behind me, each familiar landmark peeling away like a layer of skin I didn't need anymore. The bait shop, the dog park, the gas station where Lena once asked if she should go brunette just to feel new again. I told her she already was new to me, every day. I meant it, but I guess some people want to feel new for someone else. The ring sat in my pocket like it had weight beyond its size. It didn't pull me down. It didn't hurt. It was just there. A presence I hadn't yet decided what to do with. Like a word stuck on the tip of your tongue, waiting to be spoken or swallowed. I don't even remember deciding to go to Max's place. I just remember slowing down as I passed Blue Hollow, the bar where she'd met him, or at least where they'd started. It was closed that night, lights off, the sign out front missing the L. So it just read B-U-E Hollow, which felt unintentionally poetic. Hollow. That word hit different now. A perfect description of everything Lena and I had once built. I pulled around to the back of the bar, where the staff parking lot bled into a row of rundown apartments. The kind of place with sagging mailboxes and cigarette butts ground into the concrete like nobody cared enough to sweep anymore. Max lived above the bar. I remembered her mentioning that once, said he liked being close to his work, the convenience of it. I thought she meant she liked the convenience too. I just didn't realize how literal that was. I parked by the fence, engine still running. The mailbox was right there, dented, barely hanging onto the wood post beside the rear entrance. I didn't hesitate. I got out, pulled the ring from my pocket, and slipped it into the mail slot. No note, no explanation, just the soft clink of metal on metal as it dropped in. That was it. Closure, people always say, like it's some grand emotional gesture. Like it has to come with a speech or a confrontation or a last-ditch plea for understanding. But this wasn't that. This wasn't about Lena knowing what I'd done, or Max wondering why he got a surprise ring in his mailbox. It wasn't about making a statement. It was about letting go of something that had already let go of me. I turned back to the car and sat there for a while with the engine running and the door open. The air was cold, but not unkind. The kind that clears your head. I watched my breath fog up and disappear like it didn't belong to me. There were no tears, no music, no voice in my head narrating the moment like I was some tragic character in a film. I was just there, breathing, blinking, waiting for something to feel different. Eventually, I drove home, not because I wanted to be there, but because I had nowhere else to go. It was funny, in a way, how you can lose someone without them ever leaving the room. And then when they do leave, all you're left with is a space you no longer recognize. I walked through the front door like a guest. The groceries I'd bought were still sitting where I left them. Almond spread, rosemary garlic crackers, that overpriced shampoo. I didn't bother unpacking the rest. I just moved the bag aside, made myself a sandwich I didn't really want, and sat at the kitchen table eating one-handed while Bruno rested his chin on my foot. I think he knew something was wrong. Dogs always do. He didn't whine, didn't beg, just stayed close like he was waiting to see what I'd do next. I didn't pack that night, didn't open a suitcase or check for clean laundry. Not because I thought Lena was coming back. Not because I had any hope left in me. But because I realized I didn't even know what was mine anymore. Every book, every mug, every photo in a frame had some piece of her fingerprint on it. Even the couch cushion had that little indent where she always curled up to read. How do you pack a life that was always shared? So I didn't. I just sat there in that strange half-light, the kind that comes from a single lamp left on in a room where nothing feels warm anymore. I stayed up way too late, didn't touch my phone, ignored the quiet urge to look at her messages again just to feel something. Anger, sadness, proof that I hadn't imagined it all. Instead, I gave Bruno more attention than I ever had. I brushed him, let him sit on the couch even though Lena always said no. Let him sleep at the foot of the bed like he used to when he was a puppy. It wasn't for him, really. It was for me. I needed someone loyal in the house. Someone whose presence didn't carry a shadow behind it. By morning, I was still there. Still breathing. Still in the house we both used to call home. She hadn't called. Hadn't texted. Maybe she hadn't even noticed the ring was gone. Maybe she had. But either way, I knew that what we had was no longer something that could be fixed. We weren't on a break. We weren't figuring things out. We were done. She just hadn't realized it yet. For more than 24 hours, I didn't answer my phone. Not because I was being dramatic or because I wanted her to wonder. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Seeing her name pop up on the screen felt like letting a stranger knock on the front door of my life. And I wasn't ready to open it. Not anymore. I muted everything. Turned off notifications. Put the phone face down on the counter and left it there, cold and buzzing like a memory that wouldn't die politely. The house was quieter now, but in a different way than before. This silence didn't feel like anticipation. It didn't wait. It didn't breathe. It just existed. Honest, flat, unapologetic. It was the sound of someone being alone and finally not lying to themselves about it. I slept on the couch that first night. Not because I was avoiding the bedroom, I just didn't feel like walking that far. I didn't even turn off all the lights. I left one on in the kitchen, a soft glow spilling across the floor. The kind of light people leave when they expect someone to come home late. Only no one was coming home. The couch cushions were firmer than I remembered. Or maybe I just felt them differently now that I wasn't wrapped in that usual haze of being half asleep next to someone. I'd gotten used to Lena's late-night returns. The way she'd sneak into the house with that mix of guilt and casualness like it was normal to come home past midnight on a Tuesday. I always said I didn't mind. And I didn't at first. It wasn't the hours. It was what filled them. Now, she could come home whenever she wanted. Or never at all. Bruno settled beside the couch, snoring softly, his tail occasionally thudding against the floor in dreams. I envied him. Dogs don't complicate love. They just give it. They don't overthink or hide. They don't erase themselves from someone's life while still pretending to be in it. The next morning, I got up before the sun. Not because I had anywhere to be, but because I couldn't sleep. I poured myself a cup of coffee, black, and stood at the back door watching the sky go from deep blue to that washed-out kind of pink that always feels like it belongs to someone else's morning. The kind of sky that makes you feel like maybe the world is trying to tell you something, even if you're not ready to hear it. Around mid-morning, the knock came. Not loud, not urgent, just there. I already knew it was her. There's a kind of knock you learn to recognize when someone doesn't want to fight, but they don't want to leave either. A knock that hopes the door opens and does the hard part for them. I took my time, didn't rush. I didn't want to make it easy. When I opened the door, Lena stood there with her shoulders curved inward like she was trying to fold herself small. She wore the hoodie she always stole from my side of the closet, the one that still smelled like my deodorant even after she'd washed it 3 times. Her hair was pulled back into a loose bun, and her face was pale, almost blank. But her eyes, they were desperate, not crying, not pleading, just searching. "Hey," she said quietly, like we were strangers on a train, and she wasn't sure if she should sit beside me or keep walking. I didn't say anything. I didn't lean against the doorframe. I didn't even blink. She bit her lip, shifted her weight from one foot to the other. I was hoping we could talk. I looked at her, not through her, not around her. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't see someone I loved. I saw someone who had chosen to love someone else. And that changes everything. So I did the only thing that made sense. I closed the door, softly, without a slam, without a dramatic sigh or a final glance. Just shut. And that was that. She didn't knock again. I waited, standing on the other side of the door for a full minute, listening for footsteps, for the rustle of her coat, for the creak of the porch step. Eventually, I heard the sound of her car starting. Then nothing. Silence again. But this time it was mine. The rest of the day passed like fog. I did things without really registering them. Fed Bruno. Took out the trash. Cleaned the dishes she'd left in the sink from the last meal we had together. Takeout from the Thai place down the road. I'd asked if she wanted to watch a movie that night. She'd said she had to catch up on emails. I nodded. Pretended it didn't sting. Now I knew the truth. The emails were real. They just weren't for work. That night I went into the bedroom. Not because I wanted to reclaim it, but because I finally felt like I could. The sheets still smelled like her. Faintly floral. A scent that once brought comfort but now felt foreign. Like wearing someone else's clothes. I stripped the bed. Washed the linens. Opened the windows even though it was cold. Let the air in, let the past out. I slept better than I expected. And in the morning, for the first time in what felt like months, I made coffee for one. Just one. No extra mug. No waiting to see if she'd shuffle in sleepy-eyed and sarcastic, wrapped in that robe with the frayed sleeves. There was no expectation. No performance. Just me. The coffee. And the sound of a life getting quieter in all the right ways. I started noticing small things. Stupid things, probably. The kind of details you'd never think twice about until they stop happening. The bathroom mirror stayed clean. There were no powdery fingerprints. No smudges from her leaning in to apply mascara. The sink didn't clog like it used to. There were no long strands of her hair coiled around the drain. No bobby pins scattered across the counter. The milk lasted longer. I didn't find half-finished glasses on the nightstand or lipstick stains on the rim. The throw blanket on the couch never moved from the spot I left it, perfectly folded. The light in the laundry room was always off. The towels were stacked the way I liked, and no one left the back door cracked open to let the breeze in. It was like the house had sighed in relief the moment she left. It was no longer pretending, and neither was I. For the first few days, I didn't talk about it. Not to friends, not to family, not even in passing. If someone texted and asked how things were, I'd give vague answers. Busy. Same old. I wasn't hiding the breakup so much as I was keeping it for myself. Like a wound I hadn't decided to show anyone yet. The truth is, it didn't feel like a breakup. That word suggests something mutual. Something clean. This felt more like a disappearance. Like I'd been sharing a life with someone who had slowly been walking away for months. Maybe even longer. And I'd only just turned around to realize I'd been speaking to an echo. Eventually, I got a message from her. A text. No call, no voicemail, no apology. Just a line of text like we were scheduling a dentist appointment. Don't forget to cancel the florist for next weekend. I already called the caterer. That was it. No, I'm sorry. No, I wish it didn't end like this. No, I never meant to hurt you. Just a logistical note. As if the relationship had been reduced to an event that no longer needed planning. I stared at the message for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. I wanted to reply, not to argue, not even to ask why, just to say something that might make her realize what she'd done. Something sharp or clever or final. But in the end, I didn't write back. I couldn't give her a last word when the conversation had ended long before either of us admitted it. So I deleted the message. I deleted the thread. It was over. Not with a bang. Not with a scream. But with a shrug. An electronic ghost of what we once called love. A few more days passed. Then a week. I started filling the space. Not with people. Not with noise. Just with life. My life. The one that had been buried under compromise and apologies and all the small sacrifices I made in the name of us. I started waking up early, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I opened the windows before the sun had fully risen and let the cold air bite at my skin. It made me feel alive, in a strange, quiet way. Real. I began taking longer walks with Bruno, sometimes before sunrise, sometimes after dinner. We'd go farther than usual, past the harbor, down roads we never used to take. He liked the new routine. I did too. There was no timeline, no one waiting on me, no expectation to rush back and explain myself. One morning, I stopped at a small cafe I'd never noticed before. It sat on a corner tucked between a bookstore and a laundromat, with a crooked sign and a chalkboard out front that read, "Coffee first, adulting later." I stepped inside. The barista, a woman about my age with a silver nose ring and kind eyes, smiled and asked, "The usual?" And I froze. For a second, I thought she was making some kind of joke. But then I realized, she didn't mean our usual. She didn't mean Lena's half-CAF oat latte with caramel drizzle and my plain black coffee. She meant my usual. I ordered, paid, sat by the window. Outside, the world moved on like it always had. A man walked by carrying a box of donuts. A kid rode a bike too fast, nearly clipped a mailbox. A girl with tangled hair and a glittery backpack tried to keep pace with a golden retriever who didn't understand the concept of walking in a straight line. Life. Ordinary. Unbothered. And for once, I didn't feel like I was outside of it. I didn't feel like I was watching it all from behind glass. I didn't think about where Lena was. I didn't wonder if she was texting Max or if she missed me, or if she still wore that hoodie she stole from my side of the closet. I didn't check my phone. I didn't scroll. I just sat, coffee in hand, window seat, breathing. And when I stood up to leave, I didn't look back. I didn't rehearse any words I'd never say. I didn't draft messages in my head or imagine bumping into her somewhere down the line. I didn't wonder what she'd think if she saw me like this, calm, unbothered, maybe even okay. I just walked forward. No more carrying space for someone who had left theirs empty for me. No more waiting for a version of love that came with loopholes and footnotes. Just me, my feet on the pavement, my breath in the cold morning air, my hands in my pockets, warm and steady, the sun beginning to break through the clouds, and that quiet voice, somewhere deep in my chest, whispering something I finally believed. You're free now. You're really, truly free.